Hi guys, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikki and this is With Her Nose Stuck in a Book. Today I am going to be going through 12 classics that I would like to read in 2026. There is some here that are quite long and some are a bit shorter, so the idea was to have one classic per month. There's a couple here that will probably take longer than a month, but I'm hoping that some of the other ones that are quite short will take less than a month and it will balance it out. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first book that I have here is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I haven't read this Jane Austen, and I don't know much about it. So I would like to tick that off my list. I recently read Emma for the second time and I really enjoyed that, so I'm hoping that this one will be just as good. It is about Anne Elliot, who was persuaded years ago to break off her engagement to the handsome but poor Captain Frederick Wentworth. And then I think the story is about them meeting again, and what happens there. Apparently it was her last novel to be completed before she died. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. That is Persuasion by Jane Austen. Next up I have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. On my previous video I said that I would like to read James by Percival Everett this year, which is obviously about Jim, the runaway slave from Huckleberry Finn. I haven't read Huckleberry Finn, so obviously I want to read that before I read James, because obviously that's a retelling of this story. And it is about a boy. I think he runs away from his home. He's got an abusive parent, a drunken father, and he runs away with the slave Jim, and it's about their adventures while they're doing that. And I've heard things about people asking for this to be cancelled, for it to be not printed anymore, or for language in it to be changed, and I'm not really here for that. I've heard that about different books, even like Roald Dahl books for children. I'm not really here for changing books from the past, because you should read books like this and be shocked, because that's kind of the point. It's a kind of lens to look through into a period of time, and you should read about slavery and be shocked, and you should hear certain language and be shocked. And if you take that away, then what is reading for? Like how do you learn from the past if we just whitewash it and pretend things like this didn't happen and words weren't said and things like that? How do we learn from history if we just make it all look rosy? It's a debate for another day, and I won't get into it, but I'm not here for altering books that were written in the past. So yeah, I will be reading this in, I believe, its original form, and I look forward to finding out what it's all about, and then continuing on that story with James. Next up I have a big giant book. It's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I have actually read the first half of this, just under half. I started it last year, and I'm just slowly working my way through it and listening to lectures on it. And it is about, obviously, Anna Karenina, who is this beautiful, intelligent woman that's part of the high society of Russia, and she is married to quite a important figure in Russian society and politics, I believe. But she's not happy. She's unfulfilled in her marriage, and she has an affair with Vronsky. And it's about the kind of fallout from that affair and what happens. And at the same time, we also have the story of Levin and Kitty and their relationship. And yeah, it's really good. There's some parts in it that are quite tough to get through, like Levin, when he's just in a spiral in the haystacks, is a bit like, you kind of are like, come on, like, just hurry up. But it's really good. Everywhere else, it's just those kind of small parts that are a bit tedious at times. So yeah, like I said, I don't know if you can see here, lots of highlighting, lots of notes in the margins and stuff, annotations, marginalia. So yeah, as you can see, I am really enjoying it, but I'm working my way through it slowly so that I can appreciate it and like take notes and stuff. So yeah, hoping to finish that. Next up, I have Great Expectations, just because I feel like it's a Charles Dickens book that I'll enjoy. It's one that everybody seems to either say like their favourite, or it's one of the more accessible ones. I read Bleak House in December, and it was extremely long. It was enjoyable for the most part, but it was just quite long and quite dense at times. So I'm looking forward to trying out Great Expectations. It's about Pip, who lives with his sister and her husband, and he has basically like very few prospects until he meets a mysterious benefaction who takes him from the Kent Marshes to London. Pip is haunted by figures from his past: the escaped convict Magwitch, the time-withered Miss Havisham, and her proud and beautiful ward Estella, and in time uncovers not just the origins of his Great Expectations, but the mystery of his own heart. Powerful and moving novel, Great Expectations is suffused with Dickens' memories of the past and its grip on the present, and it raises disturbing questions about the extent to which individuals affect each other's lives. This edition includes a lively introduction, hits notes, So yeah, it's about Pip and how he wants to kind of better himself and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And as it kind of went on to say there, this has an introduction, notes on the text, appendices, explanatory notes on the text and stuff, which should be helpful. I believe I also have the Norton Critical the Norton Critical Edition, which will be helpful as well to read around the text. But yeah, hopefully I enjoy that Dickens more. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy Bleak House. I did enjoy the story, but at times the language was quite difficult, and there was parts of it I enjoyed more than others. So this is a shorter Dickens that I'm hoping that I will enjoy and find a bit easier to read. Next up, I have an absolute chonker of a book at 1,400 pages. This is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I haven't seen the stage play, I haven't seen the movie. I vaguely know the story. I know the songs from a couple of the songs from the movie, and the stage play, but I haven't read it. Haven't actually seen the musical or the film of the musical, but I want to read this year, and I have sectioned it up. I don't know if you can see this, into 12. So I plan to read this over the entire year and just slowly work my way through it. It works out roughly at about 110 pages per month. So yeah, It's doable. It's about 30 pages a week. So it's certainly doable, but as I say, I've portioned it up. I want to read it slowly over the entire year and really kind of take it in, because as I say, it's a massive work. And it's basically about the wretched of society. It's set in France, obviously, during at the kind of revolution era. And it says here, Les Miserables, or The Wretched, is Victor Hugo's epic novel of redemption, sacrifice, love and suffering. It tells the story of ex-convict Jean Valjean, who has spent 19 brutal years in chains after stealing a loaf of bread. Saved by an act of Christian charity, he is then offered a chance of happiness when he encounters the downtrodden Fantine and vows to rescue her daughter Cosette, but is constantly pursued by the implacable policeman Javert, who will not let him escape his past. An instant bestseller on publication in 1862, Les Miserables weaves together individual stories with real-life historical events to create a rich, imaginative drama of human life. So yeah, obviously it's an epic. It's 1,400 pages and the writing is tiny. So I will have to wait until my new glasses arrive before I start that, because there's no way I can read that at the moment. But yeah, looking forward to that. Next up, I have another kind of epic, not quite as big as Les Mis. It's about half the page number. It's about 600 pages, this one. And it is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Again, I have never read Moby Dick. I know it's about a whale. And it's about revenge, and that is about it. So it says here, so Melville wrote of his masterpiece one of the greatest works of imagination in literary history. In part, Moby Dick is the story of an... Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wait a minute, there's a quote first. So actually, it says, it is the horrible texture of a fabric that should have been woven of ships, cables and hawsers. A polar wind blows through it, and birds of prey hover over it. So Melville wrote of his masterpiece, one of the greatest works of imagination in literary history. That makes more sense. In part, Moby Dick is the story of an early compelling madman pursuing an unholy war against a creature as vast and dangerous and unknowable as the sea itself. But more than just a novel adventure, more than an encyclopedia of whaling lore and legend, the book can be seen as part of its author's lifelong meditation on America. Written with wonderfully redemptive humour, Moby Dick is also a profound inquiry into character, faith, and the nature of perception. So, from what I've heard of this, it's amazing. It's Shakespearean in its language. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's basically, to paraphrase it, that Shakespeare wrote Moby Dick using Herman Melville as a Ouija board. So it's heavily influenced by Shakespeare. But on the other hand, I've also heard that there's just chapters that are about the whaling industry and things like to do with that. So that aren't necessarily moving the story forward. It's just basically the history of the whaling industry. So there's a whole chapter on the rope the type of rope that they use in the whaling industry, and a lot of people find it quite hard to get through those chapters. A lot of people skim those chapters, but the actual story aspect of it is amazing. So yeah, I am intrigued to give this a go and find out what it's like, and if I'm able to get through those chapters, if I do end up having to skim them or not. But yeah, I think it is a book that I should at least read once, because it's a contender for the great American novel. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what that one's all about. Next up, I'm so looking forward to this because I keep hearing so much good things about this. And again, I've not seen the musical, I've not seen a film version of it. So I'm going into it mostly blind apart from having a bit of the knowledge about some of the songs that are in the musical, and that is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. And I bought this and have been looking forward to it ever since I saw Emma on her channel talk about it as her top, like one of her, like I think it's her absolute favourite classic of all time. And she was talking about how it's like really funny in places and stuff, and I thought it was like a kind of tragedy, and I think it is, but apparently it has a lot of comedy in it as well. So just the way she spoke about it just made me think I need to read this, and I'm probably going to read it next month in February, because I am really looking forward to it. And you probably know the story of the Phantom of the Opera, as I said, it's a very, very famous musical. I haven't personally seen it, but it is basically about this. I'll just read the back of it because that probably explains it better than I will. It says here, rumours that a ghost stalks the dark passages and cellars of the Paris Opera, wreaking havoc, have long been rife among staff and performers. This phantom also haunts the imagination of the beautiful and talented singer Christine Day, appearing to her as the angel of music, a disembodied voice coaching her to sing as she never could before. When Christine is courted by a handsome young viscount, however, the mysterious spectre who resides in the murky depths of the building is consumed by jealousy and seeks revenge. So, from what I know of it, is that the ghost isn't really a ghost, the phantom isn't really a phantom, and it's just this guy who decides this opera place needs a ghost and he'll be the ghost, and that's the kind of comedy element of it. I don't know, I could be talking absolute nonsense, but I'm looking forward to finding out if I'm talking nonsense or not and seeing how it's funny, because honestly, if you see Emma talking about this on YouTube, it'll make you want to read it. And then since then I have seen other people, I've actually overheard two people talking about it in a bookshop, about how it's their absolute favourite of all time as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to give that one a go. Next up, I have another Austen. I have read Pride and Prejudice, but a long, long time ago, so I want to revisit it and just give myself a little reminder about what it's all about. Obviously, by Jane Austen. And it is about Elizabeth Bennet and the very famous Mr. Darcy. And just your typical Austen, where it's a love story between Elizabeth and Darcy. They kind of misjudge each other, they challenge each other, they clash with each other, but ultimately they change each other for the better. And like they change themselves as well. Obviously it's about love, society, like that kind of Georgian society where like marriage, it's like basically like a market, like you're people aren't marrying for love, like you're marrying for your social status or for money, and stuff like that. So Elizabeth Bennet doesn't want to do that. Like she wants to marry for herself, like for love, and yeah, it's about that. And obviously it has the very, very famous, probably one of the most famous lines in all of literature. The first line of Pride and Prejudice is, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife." I don't know how universal that is now, but it is one of the most famous lines in literature, one of the most famous love stories in literature, and I am excited to revisit that. Next up, I have Dracula by Bram Stoker, which I am hoping to be my October classic read, and that is like, this is obviously about Dracula the vampire, the kind of one of the OG stories of the vampire, or at least the most famous story about a vampire. I have never read it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like, because I've obviously read lots of other vampire stories in my lifetime. The Interview with the Vampire, the Twilight series, True Blood series, lots of, like, there's lots more. But yeah, the vampire is a very famous figure in today's culture. Sorry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the OG was like. Obviously, Carmilla and stuff came before this, but this is the very this one's kind of held up as the original vampire story that's like kind of how vampires are as we see them today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've seen obviously a lot of films of Dracula as well. There's lots of different variations, so yeah, interesting to see where that all came from. Next up, I have two books by the same author, and the first one is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, which is about a young governess who goes to a home, and she's not treated very well by her employers. She struggles to control the children that she's meant to be looking after, and I think it follows a kind of romantic plot as well, like a subplot between Agnes and Mr. Weston. So there's that aspect to it as well. So I'm looking forward to that, because I've never read any of Anne Bronte. I've read obviously Emily Bronte and Charlotte Bronte, but I have not read any Anne Bronte. So looking forward to that. Then I have The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which is also Anne Bronte, and this is about a woman who escapes an abusive husband with her young son, and she basically she moves into Wildfell Hall, and there is a lot of gossip around her, why she's there without a husband, and like what happened and stuff, because obviously in those days women didn't leave their husbands, even if they were abusive. You were stuck in marriage. You couldn't get a divorce just because your husband was abusive, which is ridiculous, but it was a sad fact of the time that women were stuck in these horrible situations. So obviously she's had the courage to do that and take her son out of that situation, and it's about how she deals with that. And yeah, it was kind of groundbreaking at the time, because, as I say, the subject matter was so scandalous because women didn't leave their husbands, and yeah, it's a powerful look at women's position in society in this era. So yeah, and then finally I have another huge book. This one is 1,000 pages again, and it is Gone with the Wind, by Margaret Mitchell. And again, there's a lot of controversy about this book, because it obviously kind of romanticizes the Civil War and the South, and the whole slavery era, but it is also seen as a great work of literature. So I want to read it and just see for myself. what it's like and if it's really good. It's obviously about Scarlett O'Hara, and Rhett Butler, set in the Civil War, in the South, and it won the Pulitzer Prize, and it was made into a movie almost instantly after it was released, I believe. There was a lot of controversy around it because it was up for Oscars, but the woman who played, I think her name's Hattie, like the slave, like the house slave in it, she wasn't allowed to attend the Oscars even though she was nominated for an Oscar as Best Supporting Actress, because the theatre where the Oscars were taking place still had segregation, so she wasn't allowed to attend. So yeah, and I believe because it was set in Atlanta, the movie premiere was held in Atlanta, and it was almost like celebrated because as this brilliant portrayal, because like the South was still very heavily segregated and stuff, and there was still a lot of racism there. So this was kind of held up as almost like a Bible towards the slavery era and the Civil War era. So yeah, there's controversy around it, but I'm not going to read this book and then be like, oh yeah, I agree with like this, that, and this. Like, I'm intelligent enough to read this book and still have the opinions that I had on slavery and the Civil War, and all that kind of thing before I went into the book. But I think I do want to read it and see what it's like, and as I say, it is still seen as a great work of literature. So yeah, I'm going to read that and I will let you know what I think. I have seen the film once, when I was studying the American Civil War. I watched that and I watched Glory and stuff, and yes, it is a very romanticised version of the past. I wouldn't watch Gone with the Wind or read Gone with the Wind for the history. There's other films and other books to do that. But yeah, so this is my final book on my 12 classics for 2026. Please let me know if there's any there that you've read, and let me know what you thought of them, especially books like Gone with the Wind and Huckleberry Finn and stuff like that. What you thought of them. Is there other books that you would recommend me put on my list for this year or even in next year? And is there any here that are your absolute favourites? Are there any here that you really, really didn't like? Yeah, just please let me know. I look forward to seeing your opinions. And until next time, thank you for watching and see you later. Bye.